All right, so let's take all that theory that we had just now. Let's tie it together and look at some examples of some code. All right. So let's say we were tasked with using JavaScript. All of us wanted us to use some JavaScript to create some pop-up windows for pages in our code. All right. So let's start here. Let's look at the this HTML page called popups.html. All right. So let's look at what we're doing here. All right, so we have our HTML, our dot type, which signifies that this is what type of HTML? What version? That's right, HTML5. All right, there's our HTML tag. All right, there's our head. All right, we're just going to put a simple title on it, pop-up windows. All right, and ignore this. This is just some code that if the user is using IE9, makes our code compatible for HTML5. All right, body. All right, so here's the important part. So in our body, we have two paragraph tags. All right, one contains an anchor tag, an HTML anchor. Right, and what's in that HTML anchor? An href that points to a page popup.b.html. All right, and it has the ID link, and the target is popup. All right, this one has the href to popup.a.html page, the ID of link, and the target pop-up. So they both have the same ID. All right, and we'll see how that plays in. Now we're going to include a script here. So in our JS folder, we have a script called popups.js. All right. Now what we want is for these pop-ups to open up the pages in separate windows, regardless of whether the user has the pop-ups blocked or not. So we're going to see how to do that in JavaScript. Okay. Now let's go take a look at popups.js and see what we're doing in that class, in that code. All right. All right, so we're going to start getting into some stuff that I want you to put in your code. And we're going to talk about it real quick because we haven't talked about events yet, but we're going to do a brief overview of it. All right. Now, so let's start here at the bottom with this window unload code. All right. Now, what is that doing? What is the reason I have this here? All right, so we talked earlier about how JavaScript loads. So the page, and this is going to tie into our conversation of the document object model, right? So the page, when the page starts to load in the browser, it's going to start at the top of the page, and it's going to start executing until it gets to the JavaScript, and then it's going to load the JavaScript. And if previously you saw me just put the code at the top level of the page, and it immediately started executing as soon as that JavaScript was loaded. All right, so that's a bad approach. Here's why. Because the page loads, or the browser loads, the document object model as it encounters elements. All right, so if I have the JavaScript in a certain place in the page where it gets executed before the page is completely loaded, right, then I may be trying to access document object elements in the document object that have not been created by the page yet. So if the page is not loaded completely and I try to access an element that is not there yet, I'll get a null because that element does not exist. All right, so how do we solve that? We want to wait until the page is fully loaded, or the window is fully loaded, before we try to access anything in the page. All right, now how do we do that? JavaScript is event driven, and we're going to get to that when we talk about events. But for now, just know that it is event driven, which means that when certain events occur, we can listen for them and do something with it at that point. All right, now, so the event that we're concerned about here, as far as loading the DOM or waiting until the page is completely loaded, is the onload event. So what happens when the window or the page is completely loaded, the onload event will fire. All right, so we listen for that by saying window.onload. So the event, when this event is fired or the page is completely loaded, this event will fire. All right, like I said, we're going to get into the syntax a little bit later on. All right, so we're going to assign an anonymous function to this. So if you took core JavaScript, you should be familiar with anonymous functions. So we're going to assign an anonymous function to the onload event. All right, anonymous functions are just functions without a name. All right, so we're saying take this function and assign it to the onload event. So when this onload event occurs, I want you to execute this function. All right. So again, this function will not execute until the page is completely loaded. Okay. Now, so with that, let's talk about what the code does as far as manipulating the DOM. All right. So we want to add an event handler for each. So we're gonna ignore the adding of the event handler. Well, we'll talk about it briefly, but you might not understand it until we get to um, events. But here's the important part about this. All right. So remember the shortcuts I talked about? I said that we could grab all the links in the page. All right. So what we're doing here is we're saying create a for loop, and we want to grab all the links in the page. So we're saying initialize I to 0. Then we're saying initialize count to the length that is returned by asking for the shortcut document.links. Remember, document.links returns an array containing all the links in the page. So document.links.length will return the length of the array containing all the links. So in our case, there's only 2 links on the page, so we should get a length of 2. All right. Now, what are we going to do? As long as I is less than count, we'll keep iterating. So what do we want to do? Document.links is an array, so each pass of the loop, we want to grab the ith position, right? And we're going to set the onClick event. The onClick event, remember I said JavaScript is event driven. So the onClick event is just the event that occurs when a link is clicked. And we'll get clicked. So we'll get into that into a minute. In a later lecture. But for now, just know that we're assigning a function called create popup when that link is clicked. All right. Now let's look at the create popup link, and this is what I'm concerned about here is manipulating the DOM here. All right. So create popup, and we'll talk about E shortly, but E is the event, so we won't talk about that just yet. So ignore this part here. All right. Now, this is the part that we've done. We're creating a pop-up window for the link that we're concerned about. All right. So window.open, remember we talked about that? This opens a new window for us. All right. So what are our parameters? The page. So right now we're grabbing this off of this event object. Don't worry about it. We could easily replace this with a string representing the link, but that's not what we're concerned about. We're concerned about using the window object to manipulate the DOM. All right, the name of it, and then our HTML attributes for it. All right, and we're going to give that window focus. So here we're checking to see if the pop-up is actually null, or that is not equal to null, and that is not close. We're ensured that our pop-up opened. All right, so we're going to set the focus now. Focus means that we're going to take the focus from the page and put the focus on the pop-up that we're opening, meaning that's what the user can use. All right. Now this return false and this return true are going to be important in a little while. All right. So return that false means that I don't want you to execute the default behavior of the browser. The default behavior is to do a postback, which means that when the page, when the JavaScript returns, if I say return true, the page is going to post back, which means the page is going to reload itself, right? That's where you'll get a flash and the page will reload itself. Well, we don't want the page to reload when JavaScript returns. So we're going to return false in this case, so the page does not reload. It just stays where it is, all right? But if the pop-up does not open, we're going to return true to allow that default behavior of allowing the page to post back, all right? Now, let's see that in action. So if we open it up, eventually it'll open. Hold on 1 second. There we go. All right, so if I click A, I get my window. Here it is over here. Let me pull it over. Come on. Grab it. open up so small it won't let me grab it. Come on. Let's cheat a little bit. There we go. So there's our pop-up window that popped open for us via our JavaScript. So we were able to open up a window. And it in turn contains a link to B. All right. Now, that did not open the pop-up window. We'll see why. So let's click on B. And here we go. Here we have a pop-up window for B. All right. So we're able to create pop-up windows. All right. So let's go back to the code real quick and see why A didn't open B in a new window. So if we go to popup.a.html, it should have opened in a new window because we have our pop-up script also on this page as well. But let's look at this script. That's a different script. Pop-up is a different script. Now let's go through pop-up. All right. And this is closer to what we were talking about, which is retrieving an element. All right. So here's our window.onload. So this does not run. And this is, in fact, this is, which page did I open? Pop-up, I'm sorry. All right. So this is our listening for the DOM, waiting for the DOM to load. So you're going to put this in every script that you use now. All right. So our window.onload, and we're assigning a function to it. All right. Now, what are we doing in this function? Well, we're retrieving the element with the ID of link. All right. So document.create element by ID, and we're looking for the element with the ID link, and we're setting this on click event to the create pop-up function. All right. Now, what does that function do? Well, that function just simply opens up a new pop-up window, checks and sees and sets the check and see if it opened and sets the focus. All right. So here's an example of using the document.getElement by ID. All right. Setting on click to create pop-up, and we'll look at a couple examples of this. So don't worry if you don't 100% understand it right now. All right. So let's see who's using that one. So pop-up B does not have a script on it, but pop-up A.html has that script, and it only contains one link, which is pop-up B.html. So we'll only open up that one in a new window. Okay. All right. So stay tuned for more examples of DOM manipulation. Take care.